Not now, Freymond. Put the ring away. Not now. My name is Freymond Bailey. And the woman who said those words, loud enough for the jazz trio to stop mid-note, loud enough for the woman at the next table to lower her champagne glass in slow, uncomfortable silence, was Stiana. The person I had loved for 3 years without reservation, the person whose coffee order I knew by heart, whose laugh I could pick out of any crowd, whose 2 a.m. moods I had learned to navigate like a man who had memorized every current in a deep river. I was on one knee, ring box open, heart fully, completely, irreversibly exposed. And she said not now, with emphasis, like a correction. I remember the specific weight of closing that ring box. The small, soft click of it. I remember standing up and adjusting my jacket because my hands needed something to do, some small mechanical task to perform so they wouldn't betray me in front of strangers. I remember building a smile piece by piece, consciously, the way you assemble something in the dark without instructions. It didn't come naturally, but I held it together, because I refused to fall apart on a rooftop in front of people who had just watched my dignity take a quiet, public blow. Okay, I said, just that one word, and I watched something shift in Stiana's face, not relief, not guilt exactly, but something closer to alarm. I think she had prepared for an argument. The absence of one unsettled her in a way that a fight never could have. I know that now. Then I just put the ring in my jacket pocket and gestured for the check. We drove home in silence. The city moved past the windows the way it always did. Indifferent, luminous, continuous, and I kept both hands on the wheel and my eyes ahead. Stiana sat beside me with her fingers laced tight in her lap, and I could feel her watching me the way you watch something when you're trying to determine how badly it's damaged. I wasn't damaged. I was thinking. I was thinking about my father, Eldrick Bailey, sitting at his kitchen table the week the woman he'd loved for 11 years walked out without a real explanation. He hadn't cried in front of me. He just looked at his coffee and said, "Son, there's a difference between loving someone and auditing yourself for them. You can love with everything you have, but if they won't choose you, then you choosing yourself is not cruelty. It's just honesty." I was 19 when he said that. I hadn't understood it fully. Sitting in that car, the ring box pressing against my ribs through my jacket pocket, the rooftop still fresh and humiliating in my memory, I was beginning to. Please, before I continue, kindly like, share, and subscribe for more interesting stories. 6 months later, I found his journal. I wasn't looking for it. A book fell from his shelf and the journal tumbled open beside it, splayed on the floor like something that had been waiting. I knew I shouldn't. I picked it up anyway. Page 47. I think I've been loving a woman who is waiting for me to become someone safe enough to leave. I don't know how to be that. I don't know if it's even possible, but I can't keep proposing to a woman who looks at me like I'm the beginning of her worst fear. I sat on his floor for 40 minutes. When Freymond came home, I was back on the couch, book in my lap, pretending to read. He kissed my forehead and went to the kitchen, and I stared at the same sentence for 20 minutes without reading a single word. That night, after he fell asleep, I opened my phone and searched. Why do I self-sabotage in relationships? The screen glowed on my face in the dark. I didn't look like someone searching for an answer. I looked like someone who had just realized, with cold and horrible clarity, that she already knew one. He proposed the second time on a Sunday morning. No rooftop, no ring, no audience. I was making coffee. He was at the kitchen table reading. He didn't even look up. "I want to marry you, Stiana. I think you should know that." I froze, back still turned. "Is that a proposal?" "Only if you want it to be." The coffee maker hissed. I stared at the counter and felt the familiar cold wave move through my chest, the same wave that came every time forever got too close. It wasn't about Freymond. It was about being 11 years old and watching my father pack a suitcase in the middle of the night. No fight, no warning, just the soft sound of a zipper and then the door. And then my mother sitting on the kitchen floor until morning, still wearing her ring. I had never told Freymond about that night. I had never told anyone. "Not now," I said. "Things are good. Why change it?" He nodded once, washed his cup, walked past me and touched my shoulder, gently, briefly, the way you touch something you're beginning to say goodbye to. I didn't turn around. The third proposal was at the lakeside bench where we had our first date. He'd brought the ring, different from the first, simpler, more honest. But before he spoke, I saw something new in his eyes. Not hope, not nerves, resignation. I need to ask you one more time, Stiana, because I love you enough to ask, and because I love myself enough to only do this once more. My eyes filled, my chin trembled, and my body, before my mind could intervene, before I could reason my way past the 11-year-old still living inside my chest, answered first. Not now, Freymond. I just need more time. He closed the ring box, set it on the bench between us, stood up. Then we're done. Not angry, not crying, just finished. The way a door closes in an empty house. He walked to his car, drove away. I sat alone on that bench for an hour, the ring box beside me, untouched. Finally, I picked it up, opened it. The inscription inside the band read, "When you're ready." He had been ready for 2 years. I had spent those same 2 years making him wait on a feeling that I was never brave enough to name. He deleted everything 3 days later. Every photo, every post, every trace of me removed from his life with the quiet, methodical efficiency of someone who had already made peace with a decision long before he executed it. My sister Renee called me the moment she noticed. "Did you two break up?" Silence from me, which was its own answer. "What happened?" "He proposed." I said not yet. He left. Dead silence on her end. "Stiana, how many times has he proposed?" I said nothing. "This was the 3rd time, wasn't it?" Still nothing. "Oh, Stiana." Not angry, not shocked. Just that, "Oh, Stiana," delivered in the soft, devastated tone of someone who had watched a disaster approach slowly and couldn't stop it. That night, Freymond's neighbor watched him load boxes into his car, one at a time, no panic, no frantic energy, just steady, deliberate movement. He had been packing quietly for weeks, long before the lakeside bench, long before the 3rd ring. He hadn't left impulsively. He had decided, and then he had waited until he had given me every last possible chance. Then he left. I found out he'd moved cities from a throwaway comment at a dinner party. Someone said casually, "The way you mention weather. Oh, did you know Freymond took that position in Harvard City? Said he needed a clean start. My fork went still on my plate." "He moved? Last month, didn't he? Oh, right, sorry." The table went quiet. Someone changed the subject too loudly. I excused myself, locked the bathroom door, ran cold water over my wrists, and stared in the mirror for 6 minutes. I had been telling myself he was still somewhere nearby, still in the same city, still, on some quiet level, available. Still, and I am ashamed of this, waiting. He wasn't. He had packed his life into boxes while I was buying groceries and going to work and telling myself I wasn't ready yet. While I was standing still, he had simply moved. When I got home, I opened our text thread. His last message, sent the morning after the breakup, "I hope you find whatever you're looking for. I mean that." I had never replied. I put the phone face down and lay in the dark, and for the first time, I truly understood what I had done. I texted him at 11:47 p.m. "I think I made a mistake. I think I was afraid, and I took it out on you, and I'm sorry. Can we talk?" The 2 blue ticks appeared in under a minute. He read it immediately. I stared at my phone for 2 hours, then fell asleep holding it, woke at 5 a.m. Nothing. He had seen every word. He had chosen silence, and somehow that silence was heavier than anything he could have said. Heavier than anger, heavier than a fight, heavier than 3 rejections combined. 3 days later, a photo surfaced in a mutual friend's story. A birthday dinner in Harvard City. Freymond was there, laughing, genuinely, fully laughing, and beside him sat a woman leaning toward him in the comfortable, easy way of someone who had already crossed whatever distance exists between strangers. I screenshotted it. I stared at it for a long time. Her name, I would later learn, was Dara Aloe. She was a structural engineer, direct, sharp, fascinating. She never became his love story, but she was his mirror, Someone who saw him clearly, without the weight of our history pressing down on every conversation. I had given him that weight. She had given him ease. The difference wrecked me. I drove 4 hours to his city on a Saturday morning and told no one. I parked across from his building and sat there for 43 minutes, watching people move through the lobby, watching the city arrange itself around the life he had quietly built without me. Then the front door opened. Freymond stepped out in running clothes, earbuds in, moving with the easy, unhurried rhythm of a man who had made peace with his mornings. He looked lighter, not performatively happy, not healed in the cinematic overnight way, just lighter, like something that had been pressing on him for years had finally been set down. He ran past my car without seeing me. I watched him until he turned the corner. Then I started the car and drove 4 hours home. I never knocked. On the drive back, I called Renee. No hello. Just, I think I was the problem the whole time. She didn't say I told you so. She said quietly, I know, sis. I know. I cried for most of the drive. But somewhere in the middle of all that crying, something in me began to shift. Slow and irreversible, the way ice moves into water. The fear was finally loosening its grip. I called his office in Harbor City to find him. The receptionist answered. Hi, could you let Freymond Bailey know that Stiana called? A brief pause. Oh, Mr. Bailey transferred back to the main office last week. He should be back in your city now. My heart lurched so hard I had to sit down. He's back? As of last Tuesday, would you like me to… I hung up. He came back. He came back to the same city and said nothing. No call, no text, no reply to the message he'd read in under a minute at midnight. Just back. Silently. Like he owed me no announcement. Because he didn't. I understood that. But understanding something and feeling it are entirely different. I went to his old building that evening. The doorman recognized me from 4 years of visits. Is he back in his unit? The doorman gave me a careful look. Mr. Bailey is back, yes, but not in his old unit. Before I could respond, a woman walked through the lobby behind me, real estate folder, moving boxes trailing behind her. She was being welcomed into his old apartment by the building manager. He hadn't returned to his old life. He had come back to build a new one. I ran into him at a hardware store. I was buying paint, a small, deliberate act of reclaiming my own space, my own walls, my own life. I turned into an aisle, and he was simply there, comparing door locks, holding a small bag from a realtor nearby. We saw each other at exactly the same moment. The silence between us was enormous, 4 years wide, 3 proposals deep. Hey, you're back, I said. Yeah, few weeks now. I looked at the keys in his hand. New place? Yeah, smaller, better neighborhood. We stood in that aisle and neither of us could move. Then he said quietly, You look good, Stiana. So do you. He smiled. A real smile. Not strained, not longing. Warm. The smile of someone who had walked through something hard and come out the other side intact. Take care of yourself, he said, and he walked to the register. I stood in that aisle for 3 full minutes after he left. Then I put down every paint can and walked out empty-handed. But sitting in my car, I realized I wasn't devastated. I was resolved. Something in seeing him, whole, healed, moving, finally made me understand what I had to do. I wrote him a letter, 6 pages, handwritten, no second draft. I wrote about my father leaving, about being 11 years old and watching him zip a suitcase in the dark, about my mother on the kitchen floor until morning, ring still on her finger, about how I had spent my entire adult life keeping 1 foot outside every relationship so that when love eventually left, because I had always believed it would, I could at least say I had seen it coming. I wrote about page 47. I wrote about driving to Harbor City and watching him run past my car and going home without ever knocking. I wrote, You proposed to a woman who was still surviving her childhood while standing next to you. You deserved someone actually present. I'm sorry it took losing you to become her. At 2:07 a.m., I slid it under his door. At 2:09 a.m., I drove home. At 6:15 a.m., my phone buzzed. I read it. 2 words, No follow-up, no call me, no I forgive you. Just, I read it. I typed and deleted 7 responses. Eventually, I sent nothing. I laced up my shoes instead and went for a run, the first one in years. 6 minutes in, I was crying and running simultaneously, and I didn't stop for either. On a Sunday morning, 11 months after the lakeside bench, there was a knock at my door. I opened it. Freymond. No ring, no speech. Just him, standing in the jacket he'd owned for 6 years, the one I knew the smell of without thinking. He looked at me for a long moment. Then, "Are you ready now?" Not "I forgive you." Not "let's try again." Just that one question. Simple, direct, carrying the full weight of everything we had ever been to each other. I didn't cry. I didn't collapse into him. I said, yes. Quietly, clearly, without a single hesitation. He nodded. I stepped aside. He walked in. I closed the door. The coffee maker hissed. He sat down at my kitchen table, his old spot, found instinctively, like muscle memory, and I brought him a cup without asking how he took it. I already knew. I had always known. We didn't speak for a long time, and the silence, for the first time in our entire story, wasn't a warning, wasn't a held breath, wasn't the heavy, loaded quiet of 2 people avoiding something difficult. It was just 2 people, finally in the same place, at the same time, choosing the same thing. On the counter, half out of frame, sat a small ring box, simple, worn at the edges. She had kept it the whole time. The inscription still read, "When you're ready." She finally was.